Are you staring at your computer screen and nothing's coming out to write? You want to write, you try to write, but it feels like your words have hit a wall. Writer's block isn't about being uninspired. Sometimes it's deeper, emotional, or even spiritual. And today I'm breaking down 3 types of writer's block that keep aspiring authors stuck and how you can break through and finally get back into your writing flow. Let's get it. Ready to write your first book and make an impact? Do you wish you could organize your book ideas without feeling overwhelmed and actually find the time to write and finish your book? Hey, I'm Donna Cherie, a book writing coach and author. Welcome to Book Writing Made Simple. Inside this podcast, I'll teach you how to get a clear vision for your book idea, get organized, keep it simple, and develop a writing plan so you can finally get your book out into the world. Grab a notebook and pen with your favorite cup of tea. What's up, aspiring author? Welcome back to another episode of Book Writing Made Simple. I'm Donna Cherie, a book writing coach and author. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here and tuning in. And if you're an inspiring author trying to write a book with clarity, simplicity, and Holy Spirit-led guidance, you're certainly in the right place. Before we jump in, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And if you've been tuning in, be sure and share some good episodes with a friend that you know who is desiring to write a book. I'm sure that they could use this wealth of knowledge and information to help them along their book writing journey. What if I told you that writer's block isn't just saying, I don't feel like it today? What if the block you're facing actually tells you what kind of help you need right now in your book writing process? A lot of new writers think they're stuck because they're not quote unquote talented enough, disciplined enough, or spiritually deep enough. But sis, writer's block is almost always a symptom, not the problem. And once you identify which type of writer's block you're dealing with, you can get back into the writing flow faster than you think. Let's talk about what I've seen over and over again as a book writing coach. Many women come to me believing that they're not good writers or not ready when really they're blocked emotionally or mentally. And this writer's block is not a skill issue, it's an emotional issue, a clarity issue, or sometimes just an organization issue that individuals need help with along their writing process. I've seen women paralyzed by fear and completely shut down to write even before starting because emotionally they have not prepared to share their stories when they desire to write a memoir. I've seen others get stuck for months or even years. They've told me that they've been trying to write their book for 5 years, 10 years, simply because they're not organized or they get easily distracted. They didn't have an outline or a simple plan, not because they lack talent, not because they didn't have the right writing skills, but because everything was scattered and overwhelming. And I've also seen people feel guilty because procrastination kept getting the best of them. Not because they didn't care, but because life was lifing. You know how that is. And writing simply just wasn't a priority. Every type of writer's block has a root. And today we're going to pull up that root. I hope that's all right. So here are 3 types of writer's block that I want to talk to you about today to help you identify and exactly how to overcome each one if they are plaguing you. And it could be more than one type of writer's block. Today, we're just going to focus on these 3 types. But if you can identify with more than one of what I'm mentioning, then hey, take the steps so that you can overcome and move past writer's block to get into the writing flow. So, the first one that I want to talk about is emotional writer's block. This is the most common for aspiring authors who desire to write a memoir. And this can show up as fear of reopening old wounds or revisiting a painful moment. It could be feeling overwhelmed by uncomfortable emotions that rise up when you write about your life story or personal experiences. It could be the fear of judgment or criticism. What is this person going to think if I share this portion of the story that involves them? How are they going to perceive me? Or what is my family going to think about me? That is a fear that many writers have. And that pertains to emotions, dealing with your emotions and being able to process that. It also shows up as fear and anxiety of revealing parts of your story that you've never shared with anyone before. Like this is the actual first time that you're sharing this information, and that can bring anxiety or fear. And then another way that emotional writer's block can show up is shutting down when you're writing about certain scenes, certain topics in your book. That relates to your emotions. It's not that you don't know what to say, because I know that you do, but your emotional weight, the weight that you're carrying from your emotions from fear or anxiety, can block you if you haven't fully processed what you're trying to write in your book. And writing a memoir can be very vulnerable. I know it all so well. And it really requires grace, giving yourself grace, trusting in God's grace, and knowing that His grace is sufficient for you, prayer, forgiveness, if that's something that you have not done, and if you're holding on to unforgiveness, but still have a desire to write your memoir, and emotional safety and well-being, feeling comfortable or feeling confident or feeling reassured that the Lord is with you as you share your story, and knowing that He has gone before you and that He'll be glorified as you write this book. So that is some of the ways that emotional writer's block can show up as you're writing your book. And those are ways to identify it. And how can you overcome emotional block? Well, you can pray before writing. Every time you sit down to write, you can say, Holy Spirit, help me write from a healed place. And that is so powerful in itself when we just rely on the Holy Spirit to help us as we do anything in life, and especially as we're writing a book. Some other things, or I guess practical applications that you can do, is to journal privately first to release raw emotions. So if there's certain parts of your story that you want to share, write about it separately in a journal if you've never shared it with anyone before, so that you can release those raw emotions and process it there. You can also break the chapter into smaller, manageable parts. So, depending on what you're writing about in your memoir, you can break it up into different parts so that it doesn't feel overwhelming or that it doesn't feel fearful and causes you to shut down and stop writing. Give yourself permission to pause and return. That's okay. I'm not saying take a long break, but I'm saying if you're in a writing session and something comes up for you as you're writing and you need to release those raw emotions, take a pause, spend some time with the Lord, and come back to it. If chapter 3 feels too heavy and there's some kind of resistance that's coming up for you, write a lighter section first. Then come back once you've prayed and prepared your heart. The Holy Spirit will give you the words to share. I know He will. I am a living witness. And of course, Another thing that you can do to overcome emotional writer's block is to write from healing, not an open wound. So if you haven't dealt with something, maybe this is not the book or the time to write about that, but write from a place of healing and not from a place of an open wound, an injury, or something that you have not dealt with first. So that's emotional writer's block. The second type of writer's block that I want to talk to you today about is clarity writer's block. Some people feel like they don't have enough clarity to write their book. They feel like they don't have enough information, nothing's coming to their mind. This one hits when your mind is full, like you're full of ideas. You have all these wonderful ideas to write a book, but your plan is empty. You don't have a plan. Clarity writer's block can show up as saying to yourself, I don't know where to start. I don't know which direction to go next. My ideas are everywhere, but I have no structure. I'm scared my chapters won't make sense. This is not an emotional blocker, but it has to deal with organization. Clarifying and organizing what's in your head and getting it down on the page. I have talked to different individuals. I actually have a client now who is writing a book, and she has so many ideas, so many book ideas, and I'm helping her to clarify and organize what's in her head so that she can actually get it down on the paper and produce the book that God has told her to write. So clarity, writer's block is a real thing, and it happens when you're writing without direction and organization. Here's the deal. You don't need more inspiration. You need structure. Yes, I said it. Structure. You need structure. I know a lot of people who consider themselves to be creative and creative artists don't like this word, structure, and they stray away from anything that can be structural. But it really is a necessity when writing a book. I don't care what type of book you're writing, you need structure. You cannot write a quality, intriguing, impactful, good book without some form of structure. So that clarity, writer's block is related to that direction and not having organization or some form of structure. So how can you overcome clarity writer's block? You need to, yes, you need to reconnect with your outline. So if you already have an outline in place, go back to it, connect to it, look it over, see what it says. Where are you in the process? What does your outline reveal to you, or what direction is it telling you to go? If you need to re-outline, you can do that as well if something is not matching up, if something isn't making sense, if something doesn't feel right or feels off, you can re-outline. You can also just re-outline the next chapter only if you feel like everything else that you've already written down in your book is good, is solid, it's what you want. You feel good about it. There's a rest in your spirit. Great. But the next chapter is fumbling you, or you feel as if you have this block of clarity. Just re-outline the next chapter only. You don't have to overwhelm yourself. Just take it one step at a time. Another thing that you can do to overcome clarity writer's block is to break your memoir into scenes, not paragraphs. So if you're writing a memoir, you can break it into certain scenes instead of paragraphs. And this is something that really helped me. I have talked about it on the podcast before about the 5-scene framework if you're writing a memoir. So you can check that episode out if that's something that you need help with. But what this really means is just identifying certain scenes throughout your life, or certain personal experiences that you want to include in your book and work from there to be able to build your memoir. So again, check out that episode about the 5 scenes framework, and I'll link it in the show notes as well. Another practical application that you can do to overcome clarity writer's block is to keep your outline before you. You guys know, if you've been rocking with me listening to this show, that I say that your outline is your bull's eye. It is where you keep your eyes on the prize, and you cannot go wrong with having an outline, and you should always keep it before you. Keep it before you in your manuscript so that you have it, because it is a guide so that you can reach the finish line. So that's another way to overcome a clarity writer's block. And I also want to add this in here because I feel prompted to say this, but reducing distractions. Stop listening to different voices of different people. If you are somebody who values having kingdom minded teachers and instructors, or, receiving godly wisdom, then stop listening to those individuals, because those voices can cloud your clarity and it will only distract you and get you off track. So be aware of the voices that don't align with your values or your faith, and make sure that you are listening to individuals that can really help you get to where you need to go and provide you with that godly wisdom on your book writing journey. And that will also help to overcome clarity writer's block. All right, so two more additional things that you could do to overcome clarity writer's block is to use a book vision plan to regain direction, which is something I can certainly help you with. I can help you create a solid book plan so that you can get organized and go through the writing process with ease. And most importantly, what you should do is pray. Pray, pray, pray. Partner with the Holy Spirit to help bring clarity into your book writing process. Don't forget to do that. The third writer's block is the consistency writer's block. Ooh, a good one. This is something I know that a lot of aspiring authors struggle with, is consistency, staying on the consistency bus. This one shows up when writing isn't a priority. And what it looks like is skipping writing sessions, waiting for inspiration, putting your writing at the bottom of your priority list, or just saying, oh yeah, I'll do that later, and then just looking it over constantly, and it gets to the bottom of the list that never really gets done. It also looks like believing you need perfect conditions to write. So when things are slow in your life, when you don't have so much on your plate, when work gets slower, when you don't have to take the kids to baseball practice or soccer practice, or when you have more money and all types of different perfect, quote unquote, perfect conditions to write, is such a myth. Or just letting life take up all your writing time and just pushing it back year after year after year. That is consistency writer's block. Time to write will never magically appear before your eyes. You have to make room for it. You have to make room for writing your book, or else it will never get done. You have to be consistent. You have to show up. You have to be diligent. And that means creating a writing schedule. And once you create your writing schedule, sticking to it, showing up, setting reminders, setting boundaries, which is so vital, so critical is to set boundaries and letting others know you're available. If that's letting others know that you're not available on whatever day of the week it is, whether it's Fridays or Saturdays for 2 hours, and saying, hey, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., I'm unavailable and I need this time to write because God instructed me to write and I really want to get it done. So please, don't interrupt me, and just let the people know in your household, or, people that you may overextend yourself to, let them know that you're unavailable and have those boundaries in place so that you can show up to write. This means plugging in your writing time in your calendar first. Do that first, and then schedule your extracurricular activities around it so that you know your limits, so that you know your boundaries. You know when you are available and when you're not, instead of just putting your writing on the back burner. Put your writing time in your schedule first. Put that first. You can't write your book for 1 week, a month, for and then disappear for 2 months. Like, you can't do that and expect to jump right into writing again. It really requires consistency. And I've seen that trap up women of faith who desire to write a book that God has placed on their heart because of the consistency writer's block. And it really does require setting those boundaries, sticking to your schedule, being consistent, and being diligent. I feel like diligence is the brother of consistency. So just keep that in mind. So several ways that you can overcome the consistency writer's block is what I've honed in a little bit before, is to set realistic writing schedules. So that could be 1 to 2 hours per week that you can honestly commit to. Scheduling that time first, and then scheduling your other extracurricular activities. Treat that time like a meeting with God. Show up, even if you don't feel inspired, even if you don't feel like it. Show up anyway and see what God does. Put your hand on the keyboard, turn on the laptop, and see what He does. You don't need inspiration to write per se. You need to show up and trust God. Also, reduce distractions. Use that do not disturb feature on your phone or your computer. And also reduce, like I said earlier, reduce the number of voices that you're following for book writing, and stick to the one the Holy Spirit guides you to. Stop listening to so many voices. That will help to reduce distractions. You can also use timers to stay focused, and you can work for 25 to 30 minute increments. Take a 5-minute break and then come back to it for another 25 to 30 minutes until you reach your 1 hour or your 2 hours, or whatever amount of time that you can commit to on a weekly basis. And you can also use a checklist if you're a checklist kind of person and you like to mark things off that you've accomplished. Having that checklist, if that excites you and gets you going, use it so that you can overcome the consistency writer's block. Each of these 3 type of writer's block requires a different approach. And I've shared with you today different ways in which you can overcome these different writer's blocks. So I want you to ask yourself, which type of writer's block am I experiencing right now? Identify it, name it, and then take one step that I've shared with you to overcome it. And listen, don't try to tackle this on your own. Invite the Holy Spirit into this. Let Him guide your thoughts, your heart, your healing, and your writing plans. You can overcome whatever type of writer's block that you've been dealing with lately. I know it, and I'm praying for you. I'm rooting for you. And again, just take one step Do this, apply it, and see what happens. And let me know what happens and how God shows up and works things out for you throughout your writing process. If this episode blessed you and you're ready to get unstuck and write your book with support, clarity, and accountability, come join me inside the Book Writing Made Simple Writers Community. It's free, it's encouraging, and it's filled with writers just like you who desire to write and publish a book to make a kingdom impact. Join now at donnacherie.com/community. That's donnacherie.com/community. I pray that today's episode has blessed you and encouraged you, and that you will apply it in your book writing journey. Until next time, ciao. Thanks for tuning in. I hope today's episode inspired you to take that next step to write your book. Remember, small steps lead to big results. If this podcast has blessed you in some way, be sure to leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. Your support means the world to me, and it helps others to find the show. Also, be sure to pass on the inspiration by sharing this episode with a friend who could benefit from this message. God bless you, sis, and never, ever give up.